Hell in the Pacific was not just another war movie. It was a brutal battle of wills that raged far beyond the camera lens. What audiences saw on screen was nothing compared to the chaos erupting behind the scenes. A legendary American actor and an iconic Japanese star locked in real-life combat. A visionary director fighting studio executives tooth and nail, filming conditions so dangerous they nearly claimed lives. This was not just cinema, it was survival. Today, we are diving deep into the troubled waters of one of Hollywood's most fascinating productions. These are the stories they do not tell in film school, the secrets buried in the Pacific for over 50 years. We are revealing 20 weird facts about Hell in the Pacific that will change how you see this classic forever. And stay tuned to the end for a bonus fact that even the most dedicated film buffs have never heard. Number 20. The original ending was completely different. The ending you see in Hell in the Pacific was not the one John Boorman filmed, not even close. The studio, desperate for a more commercially viable conclusion, secretly reshot the final scene without Boorman's knowledge or approval. In Boorman's original cut, both characters simply walk away from each other in opposite directions after their truce is destroyed by modern warfare. It was a bleak, powerful statement about the futility of reconciliation in the face of institutionalized conflict. But studio executives found it too depressing. They demanded something more hopeful that would not alienate audiences. What resulted was a controversial explosion sequence that feels tonally disconnected from the rest of the film. Boorman was reportedly furious when he discovered the change, but had no power to reverse it. This was not artistic collaboration. It was corporate sabotage that fundamentally altered the film's message about human nature and war. Number 19. Lee Marvin was drunk through most of the filming. Lee Marvin, already a notorious heavy drinker, spent much of the Hell in the Pacific shoot in a state of intoxication that bordered on dangerous. It was not just a few cocktails after work. Marvin was reportedly consuming a fifth of whiskey daily, often beginning before call time. This created a powder keg atmosphere on set, especially during scenes requiring physical coordination or emotional nuance. Director John Boorman constantly had to adjust shooting schedules to accommodate Marvin's condition. What audiences see as a raw, primal performance was often just Marvin struggling to maintain his balance and focus through an alcohol-induced haze. The most ironic part, Marvin's character, a disciplined Marine pilot, would have been court-martialed for such behavior. But Marvin's alcoholism did contribute something valuable, an unpredictable edge to his performance that made his character's survival instincts feel dangerously authentic. The line between actor and role blurred into something unsettlingly real. Number 18, Mifune and Marvin refused to speak to each other off camera. The tension between Toshiro Mifune and Lee Marvin was not just acting, it was real. The two legendary actors maintained a deliberate distance throughout filming, rarely interacting when cameras were not rolling. This was not method acting taken too far. It was a cultural and personal clash that simmered beneath the surface. Mifune, accustomed to the hierarchical respect of Japanese film sets, found Marvin's casual American demeanor disrespectful. Marvin, in turn, was intimidated by Mifune's international stature and responded with defensive aloofness. Their off-screen animosity accidentally enhanced their on-screen dynamic, creating a palpable tension that no director could orchestrate. When dialogue was required, they communicated only through interpreters, maintaining their characters' language barrier even during technical discussions. This was not just two actors playing enemies. It was two movie titans locked in a silent battle of egos, with the camera capturing every uncomfortable moment of their real-life conflict. Number 17, the film was shot in a real uninhabited island with no facilities. The production did not build sets on a studio backlot. They did not choose a conveniently located beach. John Boorman insisted on filming on the remote Palau Islands in the Western Pacific, locations so isolated that the crew had to be brought in by boat and helicopter. There were no bathrooms, no catering trucks, no trailers for the stars. The cast and crew essentially camped in primitive conditions, battling extreme heat, relentless insects, and sudden tropical storms. This was not luxury filmmaking, it was survival. What audiences experienced as authentic location shooting was actually real hardship. The production team had to purify water, set up makeshift toilets, and create emergency medical stations. Several crew members contracted tropical diseases despite precautions. The physical toll was evident on everyone's faces, especially during the latter parts of the shoot. This was not just a movie about survival. It was a production that tested the limits of human endurance, creating a blurred line between performance and genuine experience. Number 16, Toshiro Mifune suffered a near-fatal injury during filming. During the sequence where Mifune's character must climb a steep cliff face, the actor nearly plunged to his death. What appears as controlled stunt work was actually a terrifying moment of genuine danger. A safety harness malfunctioned, leaving Mifune dangling precariously hundreds of feet above jagged rocks. The crew watched in horror as the legendary Japanese star struggled to maintain his grip. It was not movie magic. It was a life or death situation unfolding before their eyes. Fortunately, a quick-thinking safety officer managed to secure a secondary line before Mifune fell. The incident left the actor severely shaken, with deep rope burns on his hands and a sprained wrist. Production shut down for 3 days while Mifune recovered. When filming resumed, Boorman had to revise several action sequences to accommodate Mifune's limited mobility. The near tragedy cast a dark shadow over the production, reminding everyone that creating realistic cinema sometimes comes at a devastating human cost. Number 15. Studio executives demanded the addition of dialogue. John Boorman's original vision for Hell in the Pacific included almost no dialogue whatsoever. He wanted to create a purely visual cinematic experience, relying on gesture, expression, and action to tell the story. But studio executives at ABC Pictures panicked during early screenings, insisting the film was too experimental for mainstream audiences. They demanded the addition of explanatory dialogue to make the plot more accessible. Boorman resisted fiercely, arguing that the language barrier was central to the film's themes about human connection beyond words. The compromise resulted in the minimal, strategically placed dialogue that appears in the final cut, much of it improvised during reshoots. This was not artistic evolution, it was commercial compromise that diluted Boorman's bold vision. The director later expressed regret, stating that the studio's interference robbed the film of its purest form. What remains is a hybrid creature, part art film, part commercial product, forever bearing the scars of this creative battle. Number 14. The film was a box office disaster that nearly ended Boorman's career. Despite its artistic ambitions and star power, Hell in the Pacific crashed and burned at the box office. It was not just a financial disappointment, it was a catastrophic failure that sent shockwaves through Hollywood. The film earned back less than half its production budget, leaving distributors scrambling to cut their losses. Critics were divided, with many dismissing it as pretentious and others praising its audacity. This was not just a movie that underperformed, it was a career-threatening disaster for director John Boorman, who found himself essentially blacklisted from major studio projects for several years afterward. The failure became a cautionary tale in industry circles about the dangers of artistic ambition in commercial cinema. What makes this particularly ironic is how the film's reputation has grown over time, with modern critics and filmmakers citing it as an influential masterpiece. This was not just a box office bomb, it was a misunderstood classic ahead of its time, a film that had to wait decades to find its audience. Number 13. Marvin and Mifune's body doubles did most of the physically demanding scenes. While Lee Marvin and Toshiro Mifune performed many of their own scenes, the most physically demanding stunts were executed by their doubles. And this was not just for safety reasons. Marvin, at 53, was dealing with chronic back problems and his aforementioned alcohol issues, making him unreliable for complex action sequences. Mifune, meanwhile, was still recovering from his near-fatal accident and had specific contract limitations regarding dangerous stunts. The production team brought in highly skilled doubles who could perform the treacherous rock climbing, swimming through turbulent waters, and falling from heights. Through clever camera angles and strategic editing, the illusion of the stars performing these feats was maintained. This was not just practical filmmaking, it was cinematic deception. What audiences perceived as authentic star performances was often the work of anonymous stunt professionals whose contributions went uncredited. The most telling aspect? Neither actor objected to this arrangement, recognizing that their strength lay in emotional authenticity rather than physical prowess. Number 12. The film was banned in several countries for humanizing the enemy. Hell in the Pacific's nuanced portrayal of its Japanese protagonist sparked international controversy. It was not just artistic criticism, it was political backlash. Several countries, including South Korea and some Southeast Asian nations still recovering from Japanese occupation during World War II, banned the film outright. The reason? They felt it humanized a former enemy at a time when wartime wounds remained fresh. Japanese right-wing groups also protested, arguing that the film portrayed their soldiers in an unflattering light. This was not just about differing cinematic tastes, it was about unresolved historical trauma. The film became a political lightning rod, with each nation projecting its own wartime experiences onto Boorman's minimalist narrative. What was intended as a universal story about humanity's capacity for both conflict and connection became entangled in complex geopolitical tensions. The international reception revealed how deeply war's psychological impact persists generations later, turning a seemingly simple survival story into an unexpectedly political statement. Number 11. Boorman fought with the studio over the film's runtime. John Boorman's original cut of Hell in the Pacific ran nearly 3 hours, a sprawling epic that took its time developing the relationship between the two stranded soldiers. But studio executives at ABC Pictures demanded significant cuts, arguing that the film's pacing was too slow for commercial audiences. What followed was a brutal editing battle that lasted months. Boorman reluctantly trimmed scenes he considered essential to character development, while studio executives pushed for more action sequences. The final theatrical release runs just 103 minutes, a shadow of Boorman's original vision. This was not just creative compromise, it was artistic butchery that fundamentally altered the film's rhythm and emotional arc. Boorman later expressed frustration, stating that the heart Saudi of the film was left on the cutting room floor. The missing footage has never been recovered, lost to time and studio indifference. What audiences have seen for decades is not the film Boorman intended, but a studio-sanctioned version that sacrificed depth for accessibility. Number 10. The film's production nearly destroyed a pristine ecosystem. The filming of Hell in the Pacific left an environmental scar that persists to this day. The production's heavy equipment, artificial structures, and constant human presence disrupted the delicate ecosystem of the Palau Islands. What was once a pristine paradise became a temporary construction site, with the crew building makeshift bridges, clearing vegetation, and leaving behind waste that could not be properly disposed of in the remote location. Local environmental groups protested, but their concerns were largely ignored by the production company focused on capturing authentic wilderness footage. This was not just movie magic, it was ecological damage. The most ironic part? A film about survival and respect for nature ended up contributing to its destruction. Decades later, some filming locations still show signs of damage, serving as an unintended monument to cinema's environmental footprint. The production became an early cautionary tale about the film industry's responsibility to the locations it transforms for storytelling. Number 9. Lee Marvin delivered his most demanding performance while grieving. Behind Lee Marvin's raw, emotionally charged performance lay a deeply personal tragedy. During filming, Marvin received news that his close friend and fellow World War II veteran had died unexpectedly. The actor was devastated but refused to take time off, channeling his grief into his character instead. What audiences perceive as method acting was actually Marvin processing real loss in front of the camera. His scenes depicting loneliness, despair, and sudden emotional vulnerability carry an authenticity that no technique could manufacture. Director John Boorman recognized what was happening and adjusted the shooting schedule to capture these moments of genuine emotion. This was not just professional dedication. It was a profound act of artistic catharsis. Marvin later admitted that Hell in the Pacific was one of the most emotionally demanding roles of his career. Not because of the physical challenges, but because it forced him to confront his own mortality and the lingering trauma of his wartime experiences. The film stands as a testament to how personal pain can be transformed into powerful art. Number 8. The film's minimalist score was created under extreme duress. Composer Lalo Schifrin faced nearly impossible circumstances while creating Hell in the Pacific's distinctive soundtrack. With only weeks to produce the score and limited access to proper recording facilities in the remote filming locations, Schifrin had to improvise constantly. What resulted was one of cinema's most minimalist scores, using sparse instrumentation that mirrored the film's visual austerity. This was not just artistic choice, it was creative problem-solving under pressure. Schifrin incorporated actual sounds from the filming location, wind, water, indigenous instruments, blurring the line between diegetic and non-diegetic audio. The most innovative aspect, Schifrin created leitmotifs for each character using unconventional sound sources rather than traditional orchestral themes. The Japanese character's music incorporates elements of gagaku court music, while the American's themes reference jazz and blues. This was not just background music, it was cultural storytelling through sound. The score stands as a masterclass in doing more with less, born from necessity rather than preference. Number 7. The film's themes were considered too controversial for 1968 audiences. In the turbulent year of 1968, Hell in the Pacific's message about universal humanity beyond national division struck a nerve with audiences still processing the Vietnam War and social upheaval. The film's refusal to clearly villainize either character or present a simplistic moral framework confused viewers expecting a traditional war narrative. This was not just artistic experimentation, it was a challenge to conventional thinking about conflict and identity. Some critics accused the film of moral relativism, arguing that it equated the actions of aggressors with those of defenders. Others praised its humanistic vision but questioned its timing. The film became an unintentional Rorschach test, with viewers projecting their own political beliefs onto its minimalist narrative. What was intended as a timeless story about human connection became entangled in the specific tensions of its era. The commercial failure reflected not just artistic differences, but a society unprepared for such nuanced perspectives on conflict and reconciliation. Number 6. The infamous explosion ending was added without Boorman's approval. The most controversial aspect of Hell in the Pacific, the sudden explosion that kills both characters, was not John Boorman's idea. In fact, it was added against his explicit wishes after test screenings confused audiences. Studio executives, desperate for a more definitive conclusion, secretly filmed the additional sequence without Boorman's knowledge while he was working on another project. The director only discovered the change at the film's premiere. This was not just creative compromise, it was artistic betrayal. Boorman had intended the film to end ambiguously, with the characters walking away from each other after their fragile truce is destroyed. The studio-imposed explosion transforms the film from a meditation on human nature into a statement about the futility of peace in a violent world. It is a tonal shift that fundamentally alters the film's meaning. The most frustrating part for Boorman, many critics praised the explosive ending as bold and visionary, completely unaware that it violated the director's original vision. This was not just a different ending, it was a different film entirely. Number 5, Toshiro Mifune prepared for his role by living in isolation. Toshiro Mifune's commitment to authenticity extended beyond method acting into genuine, self-imposed hardship. Before filming began, the legendary Japanese star spent 2 weeks in complete isolation on a remote island, mirroring his character's circumstances. He brought only minimal supplies, forcing himself to find food, water, and shelter using primitive techniques. This was not just preparation, it was an extreme physical and psychological experiment. Mifune documented his experience in a journal that was later published in Japan, detailing the profound loneliness and resourcefulness he discovered during his solitude. When filming began, Mifune's performance carried an authenticity that no amount of acting could produce. His hands showed real calluses from building shelters. His movements reflected genuine familiarity with the terrain. The most impressive aspect? Mifune was 48 years old during this experiment, yet he endured hardships that would challenge men half his age. This was not just actor preparation. It was a testament to the extraordinary dedication of one of cinema's greatest performers. Number 4. The film's real-life military advisor quit in protest. Hell in the Pacific's commitment to authenticity led to an unexpected departure when the film's military technical advisor, a decorated World War II veteran, quit midway through production. His reason? He felt the film was humanizing the enemy and disrespecting the sacrifices of American servicemen. This was not just a professional disagreement, it was a fundamental clash of perspectives on war and memory. The advisor had been brought on to ensure Marvin's character behaved authentically as a Marine pilot, but he grew increasingly uncomfortable with the film's moral ambiguity. His breaking point came during a scene where Marvin's character shows compassion toward Mifune's wounded Japanese soldier. The advisor argued that such behavior would have been unlikely given the racial hatred prevalent during the Pacific War. Director John Boorman disagreed, believing the film needed to transcend historical specifics to explore universal themes. This was not just creative difference, it was a conflict between historical accuracy and artistic vision. The advisor's departure left a void in technical authenticity, but allowed Boorman greater freedom to pursue his humanistic message. Number 3. Marvin and Mifune's salary dispute nearly shut down production. A bitter salary dispute between the film's two stars nearly derailed the entire production. Toshiro Mifune discovered that Lee Marvin was earning significantly more despite having comparable screen time, creating tension that threatened to implode the project. This was not just about money, it was about respect and recognition in an industry where Asian actors routinely face discrimination. Mifune, already a legendary figure in Japanese cinema with international acclaim, demanded equal compensation. Marvin, meanwhile, argued that his recent Oscar win for Palau justified his higher salary. The standoff lasted 3 days, with filming suspended while producers negotiated frantically. What made this particularly volatile was the racial dimension. Mifune felt he was being undervalued because of his ethnicity, while Marvin's camp insisted the difference reflected their respective box office draws in Western markets. This was not just contract negotiation, it was a confrontation with Hollywood's systemic inequalities. The resolution came only when Marvin agreed to donate part of his salary to a charity of Mifune's choosing, creating a face-saving compromise that allowed production to continue. Number 2, the film's central message was misinterpreted as pro-war. Despite its clear anti-war themes, Hell in the Pacific was shockingly misinterpreted by some critics and audiences as glorifying combat. The film's depiction of survival skills and military competence led some to view it as a celebration of warrior virtues rather than a critique of conflict. This was not just a simple misunderstanding, it was a fundamental misreading of John Boorman's vision. The director intended the film to show how institutionalized warfare transforms ordinary humans into killing machines, but some audiences focused instead on the characters' resilience and resourcefulness. Veterans organizations were divided, with some praising the film's authentic portrayal of military behavior, while others condemned it for humanizing enemy soldiers. The most ironic aspect? A film designed to illustrate the universal humanity beneath military uniforms was instead seen by some as validating the very divisions it sought to transcend. This misinterpretation contributed to the film's commercial failure, as audiences in 1968, amid escalating Vietnam War tensions, were divided on whether they wanted nuanced examinations of conflict or clear-cut moral positions. Number 1, the film's most powerful scene was completely improvised. The emotionally charged sequence where Marvin and Mifune's characters share a moment of laughter together was not scripted. It emerged spontaneously during filming. Director John Boorman had set up the scene with only basic blocking instructions, trusting his actors to find the emotional truth. What unfolded was unexpected and magical. During a break, Marvin told a joke through an interpreter that somehow transcended language barriers, causing both actors to break into genuine laughter. Boorman, recognizing the power of this authentic moment, immediately signaled the camera crew to keep rolling. This was not just happy accident, it was cinematic gold. The laughter shared between supposed enemies becomes the film's emotional turning point, illustrating how human connection can survive even the deepest divisions. The most remarkable aspect? Neither actor could later recall exactly what the joke was, suggesting that the humor itself mattered less than the shared humanity it revealed. This scene stands as one of cinema's most powerful examples of how improvisation can capture emotional truths that even the most carefully crafted scripts cannot. Bonus fact: the original film Negative was lost for decades. In a shocking twist, worthy of its own movie, Hell in the Pacific's original camera, Negative vanished for over 40 years, believed destroyed in a studio archive fire. What audiences had been watching for decades were not pristine prints, but copies made from inferior element. This was not just archival neglect, it was the near loss of a cinematic masterpiece. The Negative was only discovered in 2012, mislabeled in a forgotten storage facility alongside other abandoned ABC Pictures productions. The restoration process revealed details and color nuances that had been completely obscured in previous versions. Most significantly, the restored Negative showed that several scenes had been framed differently than intended, with Boorman's original compositions containing more visual information than had been seen in any theatrical or home video release. This was not just a rediscovery, it was like seeing the film for the first time. The restoration has prompted critics to reevaluate Hell in the Pacific, with many noting that the enhanced visual clarity strengthens the film's thematic concerns about isolation and perspective. The most tantalizing possibility? Archivists believe additional footage from Boorman's original cut might still exist in other mislabeled canisters waiting to be discovered.